Hi there, Agile friends. I'll come in here just with a quick note to let you know that the Agile Online Summit 2022 is coming soon. To know more, check out bit.ly/AOS2022. That's all one word, all lowercase, bit.ly/AOS2022. Now, stick around to the end of the episode if you want to know more, but for now, on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Team Tuesday this week with Nousheen Manzoor. Hey, Nousheen, welcome back.
Hey, Vasco. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. So, Nousheen, today we're going to talk about teams, but as our listeners know, it's a little bit later. Before we talk about teams, we do want to know, what's the book that most influenced you in your career as a Scrum Master?
Okay, so this is a book I read I think few years down the line. It was called Into the Thin Air. This was based on the true events of the 1997 Everest disaster. And it was written by someone who survived that disaster. So why that book, why I am talking about this book and what really impressed me was it was a story of people who were so experienced in this adventure and still they failed. A lot of people died. And what was it that caused it? I mean, I understand natural things, there were things which were beyond our control, but probably there were things that we could have done to avoid it a bit on that scale. So this is a book about, it talks about you might be very experienced, but there is always a time to say no. And I think for us as Scrum Masters also, it's also a powerful tool, I would say, that we should know when we need to step down and say no for some things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the events. I've never read the book, but I remember the events, and it was really a disaster. Loads of people died, and even those that survived were badly treated.
Yes.
And even the entrepreneurs who had started the whole idea of, gathering a group of people and taking them to the peak of the Everest, there were two entrepreneurs and they died too. And it was it was really a very important story when it comes to, Everest and everything around it. But I think that there's also this aspect, which was that because they were so good at it, they were not able to accept that they were about to fail.
Yes.
And therefore did not take action, right?
Yes. And I think also based on what I read in the book, also, I think what they missed was there was lack of planning, there was lack of trust, and the teamwork was missing at such a crucial juncture when the storm hit them. So this was also something why I feel like this is the reason we should read the book, because that adventure is something we do on a daily basis with our teams.
Absolutely. And they also have the story of this escalating commitment, right? They knew they had to come back at a certain time, but they said, no, we'll just go a little bit more and just a little bit more. And eventually all of the pressures, which is, I think, a great analogy to what we do in product development, all of the pressures were for them to get to the peak. Everything was there. And of course, self-pressure, the most important one, right? And the pressure was so high that they were not willing to accept that there were other reasons that were more important, namely survival, that would push them to come back down and wait for a better opportunity.
Absolutely. That's why I said the most crucial fact was saying no. They did not say that, the leaders also didn't say no, that this is the time we turn back. It's okay. It's not always about reaching the top, but we also have to get down. And that's when it's like an end-to-end cycle.
Yeah. And it's such a great metaphor for how some of our teams get into this spiral of self-destruction, which is the topic of our next question, coincidentally. So we talk about teams now, Nousheen, and we want to focus on, this type of behaviors or patterns that emerge in a team that ultimately lead to problems. But tell us that story, the step-by-step development of what might have been a small thing at the start that ultimately spiraled out of control and became a huge problem for the team.
Yes. So the story is about one of the teams where I stepped in, not from the beginning, but in the middle of the project execution. We had like a month to go live. And I realized while working with them, the team was completely demotivated. I saw that there was lack of trust between each other because
how did that show up?
So everyone, like when they would come up in the meetings, there would be a kind of a blame game. Like, UI didn't do this. It was backend's responsibility. Backend would say, no, this wasn't mine. I think the QA should have caught it in the, and so on and so forth. So I could see that they were making excuses for the shortcomings and not trusting each other or not communicating with each other well enough. And I know that there was a lot of pressure. So they were also neglecting that self-health part, which was also important because you need to also be in a good state of mind to understand things, to do things and be productive. And this was also missing. And I usually conduct like health checks every 2 weeks, depending, maybe some teams want it every week, some say once in 2 weeks or once in a month. It's like a 15-minute health check. Where I talk to them one-on-one individually to understand their pain points or how they are doing generally as a team. And when I conducted this with this team, I came to know of all these things that I spoke of. There were issues from the beginning of the project, but no one actually paid heed. And it had led to a point where all of them said, we don't want to talk about those issues anymore, because they had reached a point where they believed that no one is going to help them.
They were resigned, those. Yeah.
Yes. So they had reached that stage. So, and in these health check, my intention with the teams is that it's something confidential, so they can share with me everything they want to, which they might not be comfortable, because some of them are not, some of us are not so confident sharing something personal in retros and so on. And that's why I have these 15-minute health checks. And I came to know like there was a lot going on for one of our dev leads, like in the personal space, also a lot of stress because of XY, some personal reasons. So all of this together was boiling down into the team, and the team was not able to deliver. It was a Kanban framework that we were using because there were tickets coming from nothing like a fixed backlog or something, but we had tickets flowing in from the client on regular intervals, and the team would start working on it. So it was very chaotic also for the team. And I realized that probably since they have gone into this mode where they don't want to talk about it, probably I need to give them that space. But at the same time, try slowly. Like I tried in my one-on-ones only, because in the group meetings, it was very difficult to do it at once, like coach them or, I don't know, mentor them as a group. So I tried a different approach of individual coaching. I would talk, when they would tell me there's problems, like this is what is not working for us, I would again ask them, like, what is it that we can do differently that can help you go from, like I would ask them as a traffic light, where are you in the beginning of the health check? If they would say yellow or I don't know red, I would say what would make it go towards yellow or towards green in the beginning? What can I support you with? Something like this. So I started to do it on individual basis, and I would definitely update them. So when they told me where I can support them, when I did that, and I would reach out to them and say, hey, this is where you had asked for support, and I'm trying to get you support in XYZ. For example, if they were lacking maybe QA was stressed out because there was a lot of work and we were not able to, he or she wasn't able to finish the work on time. So I would say, okay, I spoke to the staffing person, and we would have someone support you for like 2 hours a day or something like that. So I would make sure I would go back and tell them what I did when they asked for support, to give them the confidence that is someone, if they share something, I listen and I try to help them. And this I saw, then slowly, each one of them, they were ready to speak up in the group about issues and trust each other when they say, okay, this is something we will do from now on. For example, we had issues in the team. The tickets were lacking lot of information. And in the Three Amigos, no one was taking ownership of helping the product owner to put some details, technical details, and so on. We started with an idea as a group for story champions. It was nothing but like one person would take the ownership that once the ticket moves from Three Amigos until refinement, we have almost everything on the higher level that we need for this ticket to be in a state where we can say, okay, can we take this in the next sprint or not? So it was a small example.
So the Three Amigos is when we get product owner,
yes, we have the designer,
QA,
yes,
and development together. I mean, you could have more, but that's the kind of the basic
absolutely.
idea.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did this work? Like as you saw, you started with this individual, as you said, you started with this individual coaching. You saw that they were more open to bring up topics in the team, in the group. How did it evolve then?
Because so in the beginning, they thought that anybody in the leadership, and I say leadership, it could be anyone, Scrum Master, product owner. Then we also have the client service directors working with us, or the engagement leads who are responsible for staffing. Initially, they had this feeling no one is listening. But when slowly the improvements started flowing in on individual levels, I started encouraging them to share now things where we need to improve as a team. So I encourage them in the retros by asking probably some questions like, okay, team, does anybody else have a different view on what we discussed on this topic? And then they slowly started opening up. It wasn't like a sprint or two. It took me at least 3 sprints before I could get them to at least start a conversation, to start with, for example, in the retrospective, to start talking about issues with the faith that when they talk about improvements, we will work on the improvements and they would see a change.
Yeah, this is a great story because it also reminds us as Scrum Masters that no matter how good our intentions are and no matter how good we're working, it takes time, right?
Yes.
Especially when the team is, as you said, when you started the story, when the team is resigned, right? They say, there's no point in talking about these things anymore. And then you slowly start showing them value on these one-to-one sessions, right? Like what would make it a yellow or a green, and then working on that, making it clear to the team that you are working on helping them and figuring out a solution together with them as well. Like, I think that this first, like this doing it and not necessarily starting to talk about it or coach it, but rather doing it together with the team, then starts to build their own trust on the fact that it might be possible to improve things, right? You will get leadership support.
Yes. So it was more important for them. I felt what was the turning around for teams was when they saw that they were getting support and they had someone to listen to their issues and then support them. This was the turning point. I think that kind of bridge was missing between the teams and the leadership that was taking care of the team.
Absolutely. And that's our job, right? To make sure that they understand we're there to support them. Thank you for sharing that story, Nousheen.
No worries, Vasco. It was a pleasure.
Hi there, Agile friends. Thank you for sticking around to know more about this year's Agile Online Summit. The summit will have 4 keynotes and 4 tracks you will not want to miss. The keynotes will touch on critical topics for us, from delivering on time to helping you to focus on sustainability. The 4 tracks are tools, so we'll focus on tools you need to excel at your job, but also your mission. We'll also have a track on sustainability, which is, of course, about people and their sustainable pace, but it's also about how do we bring sustainability to the products and the planet we inhabit. We'll have a 3rd track about happiness, talking about doing what we love and, most crucially, loving what we do. And finally, the 4th track will be live. It will be mostly hands-on sessions to help you roll up your sleeves together with the presenters. Oh, and we will also have a coaching clinic, as we usually do, organized to help you discuss and get inspired to solve the hardest challenges you face at work. This year, we'll have a special emphasis on interaction with your peers, so get your ticket and join the Slack at bit.ly/AOS 2022. As always, we have free tickets for anyone that wants to attend live and the VIP tickets for those of you who want to keep the videos forever. So check them out at bit.ly/AOS 2022. I'll see you on the conference floor. Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. But tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.